called to quorum.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to take this occasion to acknowledge a very important event that occurred last night. It occurred in the other body where we had a vote for the first time since we have been deliberating and debating and wrestling with this challenge of what to do with our debt limit and the fact that we have reached that debt limit. We have had a vote by one of the two bodies that has a say in this matter on this very issue. And the House voted yesterday by a significant margin with a bipartisan vote, although it was mostly one-sided. There were members of both parties that voted in favor of raising the debt limit. The House voted to raise the debt limit, in fact, by the full amount that the President requested. The House voted to raise the debt limit by $2.4 trillion, which would completely eliminate this problem, this struggle that we have had over this looming deadline that we've been given. Now, the House vote to do so came with one condition. Came with the condition that the President join Congress in putting our federal government on a path to a balanced budget. That's the requirement. That's the contingency. And the way the House bill achieves that is by establishing three parts. The first are cuts in spending. The second part are caps on spending. And the third is a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. And the colloquial name that this approach has been given is the cut, cap, and balance approach. This is a big deal because until last night, among the three parties to this debate, the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the President, nobody had previously laid out a case that says, here's how we will raise this debt limit and deal with this problem. The House has now done so. They have passed this measure by a significant margin. And I want to just quickly walk through the three elements of it, the cuts, the caps, and the balance. And they're really all different pieces designed to achieve one goal, which is to put our federal budget on a path to balance. The cut refers to cuts in spending in this next fiscal year, which begins soon. It begins on October 1st. The cut is 3% from this year's spending level, 3%. So under the House-passed plan, next year we would spend 97% of everything that we're spending this year, but we'd cut 3%. Now, anybody who has run a business, anybody who's run a household knows that if you have to, you can cut 3% from any big budget. I guarantee you, from the enormously bloated and oversized $3.7 trillion of the U.S. government's budget, 3% is not much. But that's the cut. That's the first part. That's the level of spending for next year. It's about 3%, $111 billion. The next part are caps. And these are statutory limits to how much the federal government would be permitted to spend in each of the subsequent years for the next 10 years. Now, these levels have spending grow every year. Some suggest that these are draconian, savage cuts in spending, and actually it's increases. But it's increases in spending at a slower rate than what we've had in the past, and slower certainly than what others have proposed, what the President's budget proposed, and what the Congressional Budget Office is expecting. And therein lies savings. Therein lies the opportunity to put us on a path to a balanced budget, because I think we all acknowledge that, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to achieve a balanced budget overnight. Can't do it. We've dug too deep a hole. So we need a little bit of time to get there. The spending caps provide that discipline as we move in that direction. And the final piece is a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, which is something that most Americans have strongly supported for a long time. And if we achieve that, then frankly, we'd never have to worry about raising the debt limit anymore, because we wouldn't run a deficit. We'd be forbidden. And without a deficit, you don't need to issue new debt, so the debt would never rise. And this problem would be permanently resolved. But much more importantly, we would have our federal government on a sustainable, strong, viable fiscal path, and that would create the opportunity for strong economic growth. See, I'm convinced that part of the reason we're having such a weak economy and such poor job growth is because the uncertainty that we've created not so much over whether we're going to raise the debt limit on August 2nd or 3rd or 1st or whenever. It's are we going to solve the big fiscal challenge that we face, the problems that are dragging down Europe now, and the problems that loom for us. Now, the President and the Treasury Secretary have been extremely alarmed about the prospect that we might not raise the debt limit on August 2nd. To that very point, the Treasury Secretary said, and I quote from a May 13th letter that he sent to members of Congress, he said, "This would be an unprecedented event in American history," by which he's referring to a failure to raise the debt limit. "A default would inflict catastrophic, far-reaching damage on our nation's economy, significantly reducing growth and increasing unemployment." President Obama had a similar message of great alarm, saying, again, referring to a scenario in which we did not raise the debt limit by August 2nd, he said, "If investors around the world thought that the full faith and credit of the United States were not being backed up, if they thought that we might renege on our IOUs, it could unravel the entire financial system. We could have a worse recession than we already had, a worse financial crisis than we already had." So this is how serious the President and the Treasury Secretary say is their concern that we raise the debt limit. Well, the House just did it. The House has said, "Mr. President, we hereby vote," and they did vote, to raise the debt limit by $2.4 trillion, the full amount that the President asked for, and they've said the only condition is that you, Mr. President, need to join us in putting our budget on a path to balance, taking care of this fiscal crisis and giving us a sustainable fiscal footing so that we can have strong economic growth. And so the question today before us is, will the President join us? Will the President embrace this? The President, as I've just quoted, has indicated great alarm at the prospect of not getting the debt limit increase that he's asked for. The House has just said, here it is. And actually, I think, if not every Republican senator, a big majority of Republican senators will support what the House has done, and I hope that there will be many Democrats who will support this as well. Because none of us wants to test the proposition of what happens if we don't raise that debt limit. And so the opportunity is here now. For the first time, we have a bill has been passed in one of these two bodies that would do exactly what the President has asked for, with just this one condition. And let me comment for a moment on one of the reasons why I think it's so important that the President join us in putting our budget on a path to a balance. We have heard from various rating agencies that several of them are considering downgrading the credit standing of the United States. This is an appalling thought to me. I was involved in the bond market in my first career when I got out of college, and the United States stood above ratings. We didn't talk about having a AAA rating because we were above even that. Our rating was so superior to anyone else that the rating system didn't even really apply to the United States. Well, now, not only does it apply, but the danger is that we won't even qualify for the top rating. And do you know what it is that would cause them to downgrade the debt of the United States? It's not a failure to raise the debt limit by August 2nd. It's the failure to address this fiscal imbalance, these massive, unsustainable deficits. That's what they have told us has to be corrected, or else the downgrade follows, and a downgrade will be enormously problematic because it has all kinds of knock-on effects. So we've heard about a lot of different ideas that have been floated, and I want to congratulate and commend everybody who's been involved in putting in a lot of effort. I don't agree with everything that everybody has talked about doing, but I think we've seen people in both parties make a good faith effort to try to solve this problem one way or another. But the fact is, there's only one proposal on the table that has passed either body, and there is only one proposal that actually solves our long-term fiscal challenge in the law that's already been passed, in the bill that's already been passed. And so my question is now, will the President join us and put our government on a path to a balanced budget? We don't expect to get there overnight. And by the way, the various levels of cuts and spendings and the exact terms of the balanced budget amendment naturally would be subject to discussion. But will the President join us in this effort to restore fiscal sanity and give us the basis for a strong economic growth? That's the question, and that's the opportunity for the President. Now, I know the President has been dismissive of the idea of balancing our budget, but I certainly hope that he is not so opposed to balancing our budget that he would reject the debt limit increase that he has said we desperately need. There's an opportunity here to solve two problems at once. To solve this problem over the looming date of August 2nd, by which he has said we absolutely must raise the debt limit. But the more important opportunity is to put our house in fiscal order. The House took a very, very important step in that direction. The Senate will have a vote later this week. I hope my colleagues in the Senate will embrace this opportunity, and the President will join us, and will put our federal government on a path to balance. And with that, Madam President, I yield the floor.
Morning business is closed.